Okay, can you see that okay, Harry?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll call this deception from the very beginning. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that say everything's a lie. I used to be one of them. But I think we've come to the realization now, Harry, that everything's not a lie, it's a deception, right?
Well, yes. I mean, some people would kind of almost intimate that what's the difference between a lie and a deception? And it's very obvious that the lie is pretty blatant. It's kind of like a slap in the face, whereas deception is kind of like a backhanded compliment. So yeah, it's more the deception is more concealed, and the lie is pretty much right out there.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier to deceive people than it is to lie to them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, we'll see this right at the very beginning. This is Bible Hub, which anybody can go to, and we're into the King James Version. The only reason that I've chosen that, Harry, is because I think it's the most popular version. Would you agree?
I think that when you look at different various translations, I think this is probably one of the more accepted.
Yeah, I think.
And most read. So yeah, I think more people can associate with it.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to focus on is the first two lines. In the beginning, God, singular, created the heaven, singular, and the earth. And the earth was without form, comma, and void. And the word was is a huge deception. And we'll show you why. There's a little button here called interlinear. Now, if you click on the interlinear, it will take you to wherever you want to go, whichever verse, and it will give you the original, in this case, Hebrew, and the original translation. So, Hebrew is read right to left. So, it's talking, in the beginning, God created the heavens, well, that's plural to start with, and the earth. Now, if you look above the word God, you'll see the word Elohim. And above that, there is a number, 430. Well, if you click on that number, it will tell you what it actually means. Elohim, God. Okay, but if you scroll down, it says divine being, exceedingly God, gods, goddess, godly, gods, great, judges, mighty, rulers, many, many meanings. But essentially it's plural. It's plural. It says here, plural of Eloah. So it's clearly not God that created the heaven and the earth. It's the Elohim, which is plural, gods. So let's move on to Genesis 1:2. And the earth was without form, comma, and void. Now we'll do the same thing again. We go to the interlinear, and we can see here, and the earth was formless and void. And above the word was, Hayatah, 1961. So we click on 1961, and what do we get? Ooh, fall out, come to pass, become. If you just look a little bit further down, to fall out, come to pass, become. Became, become, becomes, becoming, being done, befall, befallen, being. It's not was. In Genesis 1:2, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and it was without form. It became without form. It was destroyed.
So in essence, what the translators of the King James are saying, it had never happened again, or previously. But in the Hebrew, the Haya, it's telling you that it was something, and it eventually degraded or broke down into something else. And one thing that I noticed too is that Haya is a palindrome. You can read it right to left and left to right way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I try to take words apart sometimes. I look at it as the palindrome type word is, there's no question at all It's obvious. It is straightforward, and in the spelling, I think that's what they're achieving too.
Definitely. But I'm gonna move on to this part. This again, we're back in Genesis 1, and remember that it was not until Genesis 1:27 God created man in his own image. We'll come to that in a sec. But I want to go up here to 21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly. So great whales, never like that. So God created sea creatures, not great whales. 8577. We click on 8577 and we get serpent, dragon, sea monster. That is not a great whale. I'm sorry. Serpent, dragon, and sea monster. That is what God created 6 whole verses before we were created. Now this is where it gets really interesting. In Genesis 1:26, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Well, that sounds all nice and fluffy, right?
Yeah.
But if they made the great whales or the sea creatures before us, what else were they making?
I tend to think that looking at that picture, it's more of a trial and error. It's almost like they're practicing, like they're trying to create something. They're not sure exactly how to do it.
Exactly.
I wouldn't think that an all omnipotent, all knowing, almighty, all powerful, omniscient God would have to do trial by error. It looks like he's making a chimera,
Yeah.
He's making all kinds of animals. He's trying to combine them, see which one works good. And
definitely. Now, a lot of these pictures, or a lot of pictures depicting these weird kind of creatures, can be found from the 14th, 15th, 16th century, which I find very, very fascinating. And there's a couple of dots there that we'll join later on in the PPT. But what I want to do, I want to go back to Genesis 1:26, and I want to change the intonation on that sentence. So let's look at it. You got a group of guys, a group of Elohim, sitting around a fire, a tree, having something to eat, whatever. Let us make man in our image. Well, if they've been screwing around doing this kind of stuff, what if one of them said, hey guys, look, let's make man in our image, after our likeness. Let's make him look like us. Oh, what a good idea. It's the same words, we've just changed the intonation. Yes. Let's make man in our image, instead of doing all this nonsense. Food for thought. And, we've all seen pictures of the big people, the giants. Karen's done I've just put up an awesome video on giants. Now, I'm going to skip here to Jeremiah 4, because in Jeremiah 4 is the only other time in the Bible that you will see, and the earth was without form, and void. And it's in Jeremiah 4, and it starts in verse 23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and they trembled. I beheld, and lo, there was no man. Well, hang on. If this is relating to Genesis 1:2, and man wasn't created until Genesis 1:27, who's the man that Jeremiah is talking about? All the birds of the heavens were fled.
Yeah, he's talking about the creation prior.
He's talking about the previous creation. So, and I've said for years that the creation in Genesis 1:27 is not the first creation of a man or a human being type thing. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities were broken down in the presence of the Lord, and by his fierce anger. For thus hath the Lord said. The whole land should be desolate, yet I will not make a full end. So he didn't totally destroy it, did he?
Hey, Nigel, who lives in cities?
Precisely. Dogs and cats, right? Yeah. So clearly there was man around before the Genesis 1:27 creation. And we are going to demonstrate, guys, over the next 2 or 3 podcasts, that all this happened 500 years ago. This is not thousands of years ago. This is very, very recent. And we're going to demonstrate that beyond any shadow of a doubt by using logic and common sense. Common sense that isn't that common anymore, so it seems.
It's a superpower.
Yeah. And for this the earth shall mourn, and the heavens will be black, because I have spoken it, I have purposed it, and I will not repent, neither will I turn back from it. This is the Lord. This is this dude, Yahweh, at the presence of Yahweh by his fierce anger. And if you don't believe me, click on 3088, and there it is. The proper name of the God of Israel, aka in our book, the Destroyer, because that's what he did. He destroyed this earth. So what we see, or what we taught as the creation story in Genesis 1, is a recreation. It's not the original creation. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God, or the Elohim, created the heavens and the earth. End of story. Then it became destroyed by this dude, Yahweh. Then the earth was recreated. So the 7 days in Genesis 1, Genesis 1 is a recreation, not an original creation. So there was no man. Well, we've all seen pictures like these, right? So let's go into Jeremiah 4:23. I beheld the earth, and indeed it was without form. Well, what does that mean? It means tohu. 8414, which is right there. It was without form. And get my cursor to work. It was without form. What does that mean? Formlessness, confusion, unreality, emptiness. Now, we all know about the creation of woman. I threw this one in as an afterthought after I found something yesterday, because it talks about as Adam slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh, and the rib which the Lord God, this is the same dude, Yahweh, took from man, he made woman. Well, what I found very, very interesting, especially with this Lyris nonsense, is this word. We all know DNA. Deoxyribo. It's right there. It wasn't a rib, it was DNA. And the interesting thing is that the N and A stands for nucleic acid. Now here in China, they don't do a PCR test for this virus, they do a nucleic acid test, which is clearly a DNA test. So the rib that Yahweh took from Adam to make Eve was DNA. Okay, so moving on.
Did you ever think that maybe the Adam was hermaphroditic?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. There's a lot of people that think the first creation in 127 was hermaphroditic. I don't think so, because in Genesis 2 it talks about the sons of the Elohim, i.e. creation 1, seeing that the daughters of Adam were fair and taking them for their wives. They wouldn't have done that if they were hermaphrodites. Doesn't make sense. But yeah, Adam could have been hermaphroditic, yeah.
And because of that, you talked about tohu, which is the formless, the void, but also we talked about how it also meant confused.
Yeah, unreality as well, emptiness, unreality, formlessness,
disorganized.
Yeah.
So these Elohim, they could be all kind of confused because they don't really know what they're doing. They're still experimenting.
Absolutely.
And you have this Eve, And I think possibly she was originally attached to Adam and had to be separated because his original thought, this God, is saying that this wasn't good. You know,
Yeah.
To talk to himself, to talk to someone.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, so when we go into Genesis 2:25, it's talking about the two of them were naked. Now, again, let's look at this word naked, because everybody thinks it means what it says, and it doesn't. Because the word is arom. Now, this word arom, okay, means naked. But if we look at the first line here, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. Subtle, cunning, is arum, A-R-U-M. And A-R-U-M comes from A-R-O-M, here, arum. Crafty, shrewd, sensible. So,
you know, in Hebrew, all the vowels are interchangeable.
That's right. That's right.
A U, an A, or an E, you can exchange all of them because when they spoke, it was always understood by context which word would go there.
Yeah, all vowels are interchangeable. Absolutely. Yeah, aram, would all be the same. But it's talking about here from aram, crafty, shrewd, sensible. Participle of aram, cunning, usually in a bad sense, crafty, prudent, subtle, naked. Okay, so then whether Adam was hermaphrodite or not, we ended up with Adam and Eve. And Adam knew Eve, he knew her. And she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord, from Yahweh. Then she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Well, that all sounds nice and fluffy until, again, we get into the interlinear. So a keeper, we're going to look at the word keeper, 7462, the keeper of sheep. Break. A breaker. What do you do when you get a horse that you want to ride that's never been ridden? You break it. You break it in.
Yeah, you're going to try to domesticate it so it'll be your servant.
Yes, exactly. Scroll down. Accusative of a person. God who shepherded me with accusative of people as flock. Pregnantly with. Figurative of ruler, teacher. That's keeper. And then when we get to the next one, 5847, which is Cain was a tiller. Well, what's a tiller? A bad, which means to work or to serve. So Abel was doing the breaking, yeah? He was creating the slaves, and Cain was serving whatever. The other interesting thing is,
look at it. Its connotation is a bad.
Yeah, a bad.
He's built in. The badness is built into him.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it's all by design, I think. So we get into Genesis 4:2 again. His brother was a tiller of the ground. Well, tiller, we've just looked at, a bad, of the ground. Isn't it interesting that the word is Adama? Adama, ground, land. We scroll down, ground as earth's visible surface. So Cain was tilling the ground, while Abel was turning people into slaves. Cain was the shepherd, if you like. He was the teacher. He was the guy that was taking care of the slaves once Abel had turned them into slaves. And then, why did Cain kill Abel? Now, the Bible tells us that the Lord wasn't happy with Cain's offering, because he was offering fruit, vegetables, whatever, and Cain was giving, well, what? I mean, he was a keeper of flock, he was a keeper of men, he was a maker of slaves, and he was giving the firstborn to the big fella. And that is nothing to do with jealousy. It's nothing to do, this is what the Bible teaches, is that Cain was jealous of Abel because God found favor with Abel and not with Cain. So Cain was jealous and therefore killed him. No. Cain was not jealous at all. Cain was angry. He was pissed, brother, because he saw what his brother Abel was doing. Hang on, these are my guys that you're handing over to this bloodthirsty psychopath. Then we talks about the mark of Cain. Cain is killed, secret anarchy, no more blood sacrifice for the psychopathic God of the Bible. Deception is everywhere. And I think it was Jeff that spoke about this. I was already looking into this as being the mark of Cain anyway. Now, we know that what the controllers of this realm do, they take everything good and they turn it and they make it bad, which is what they did with this during World War II. But you can see this from India, Russia, Germany, USA, Etruscan, Iraq. You know, they're everywhere. They were all over the world, and they were a sign of prosperity. They were a sign of peace. They were a sign of goodness. They were a sign of what we would genuinely call humanity. So I'm actually of the opinion that this was the mark of Cain, or was something that Cain carried, or something that Cain had with him, or something that he actually believed in.
Yeah, and if he went on to populate and go all over the world, this symbol, that's why it's everywhere.
That's right. Well, that's what the Bible says, that Cain lived a long life and had many descendants. So again, you have that truth connection there, but he had many descendants. He went all over the world, and this symbol is found all over the world. So therefore, it makes sense. It makes logical sense that this would be the mark of Cain, the positive aspect of this, not the negative aspect that we've come to believe in. Now, I said earlier that this goes back 500 years, and a lot of people are looking into Tartaria, the destruction of Tartaria, which essentially was still going on in the 1920s. Karen's brought some awesome videos proving, demonstrating, showing that World War I was a huge part of the destruction of Tartaria, as was World War II, but essentially it was still around in the 1920s. And she's brought a video today showing that England actually became a country in 1922. Can you believe that? 1922!
I think most modern countries found their beginnings in the 19th century.
Well, I know Italy became a country in 1861. I know that. But yeah, and she brought this video talking about England becoming a country in 1922, and also the Queen owns most of Antarctica, if you can get your head around that. It's interesting on this that the real missing civilization, Cathay. Well, Hong Kong Airline, Cathay Pacific. Just thought that was an interesting connection. The real missing civilization, Cathay Pacific. Now, this is a map of Tartaria, or what we're told was Tartaria. And if you look at the bottom, not the bottom of Tartaria, just where my cursor is now, C-I-N-E, that's the French way of spelling China. So China is this little bit of land, or was this little bit of land here, part of Tartary. But now this is China. Karen did a video on this one, on Harbin as well. I've been to Harbin. It's bloody cold up there. That shows it's all part of Russia, or was part of Russia, until very, very recently. Yeah. Now, talking of Tartaria, I saw this. This is the this coin, the Trump coin. He charged me to build my house in Jerusalem. This is the Trump coin, and you'll see the connection in a minute. You've got the menorah, which is this candlestick thing up here. But I want you to pay attention to this dude, and see the star on his ear.
Yeah.
He's an Iranian. Is this dude? Same one.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yes.
Same dude. Who he is, I've got no idea. Right, now we're going to get into who these people are, where they came from.
Isn't he supposed to be Cyrus?
Sorry?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Cyrus.
That's right, yeah, Cyrus. We're going to get into who these people are. This dude killing a bull. These Phoenicians.
That's isn't that a statue in front of the Vatican?
Yes.
So they depict that as Mithra.
Yeah.
Killing the bull, but it could also be Hercules.
I think it is Hercules, yeah.
Yeah, killing the bull.
Yeah.
And maybe that's symbolic of what they're trying to do now by killing the bull of Wall Street.
Without a doubt. But what got my curiosity, Harry, was how many statues have had their faces defaced, their noses smashed off. They are everywhere. These statues with their noses smashed off.
A lot of people's cultures are based on the size of their noses.
Well, are the chosen people of the Bible? I mean, don't they traditionally have a big nose?
Yeah, they do.
And of course, you Greeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just fascinating how many statues you see with their noses smashed off. Now, most people would be familiar with this. This is one of my favourite films. I loved Monty Python when I was a kid. Life of Brian. But this whole movie, and I never realised at the time, why the theme is big noses. What was that? I was too busy talking to Big Nose. It's all big nose, all the way through this movie. You're not so bad yourself, conk face. Where are you two from? Nose City? It's all about noses.
Yeah. Very,
very strange. So who are they? Well, the controllers of our realm are not human in the same way that we are. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go on. They're another species, reptilian soul beings. We were never supposed to meet each other. And again, I think there's enough evidence out there to show that to be true. This is a map of the double-ringed flat Earth. What we're looking at here are what's called what are known as the Pillars of Hercules. And Plato writes about Atlantis being beyond the Pillars of Hercules. So the invaders, the people that invaded this realm when Atlantis sunk in the 15th century, these dudes are Atlanteans. That's where they came from. They came by sea, which is why you go back to Genesis 1:21. Why would they make sea creatures first? Because Atlanteans were people of the sea. Was this world map made 10 centuries ago? This is our realm in the middle and outlying districts. Who knows? We don't know.
So maybe the outer shell was made prior to the inner parts.
Quite possibly, or it was all made at the same time. Who knows? But I definitely think that the people in the middle, i.e. us, these guys were never supposed to have contact with whoever lives out here. right? And when Atlantis went down, they came in. They came in through the Pillars of Hercules, just as Plato says, and basically invaded our realm.
So they were able to break through the eye of the needle.
Oh, there's a gap there, isn't there? Yeah, the eye of the needle. That's where they came. That's where they came in. It's the gate, the portal. Mm-hmm. Classic depiction of one of these dudes, Atlantean dudes, Phoenicians, Romans, whatever you want to call them. And you know, it goes back to if you think of what we said in a previous conversation about Tartaria, Russia. The Tsar, C-Z-A-R or T-S-A-R, however you want to spell it. The Tsar of Russia was the big guy. Mm-hmm. Then when we get into the Romans, you have the Caesar, the Tsar of the sea. Yeah. And the Roman, the Roman. It's all there, hidden in plain sight.
Well-equipped men to row the boats to get them from place to place.
Yeah. Oh, my camera's gone off. Okay, so again, good one, nose smashed up. It's always the nose. Always. Got to be a reason for it. Now, I want to touch on this quickly. This is talking about Anatoly Fomenko. Now, for you guys out there that have never heard of Anatoly Fomenko, you really should look him up. He's a Russian revision historian. And he was the guy that taught us that 1,000 years were added to the calendar in 1592. And, he also talks here about not only this 1,000 years, there's a Greco-biblical shift of 1,800 years, 1,000 years, 333 years, and another 100 years. But it's the 1,000 years that we're going to concentrate on, and I'll show you why. The Old Testament is a rendition of events of the 14th to 16th centuries, or 4th to 6th century without the 1,000 years. So the Old Testament is telling us what happened in the 15th century, the 14th to 16th centuries. Exactly where we're managing to date all this. And the New Testament is rendition of events in 1153 to 1186, which is the 33 years of the biblical Christ as far as he's concerned. That's a whole other story. But the interesting thing is the Old Testament is a rendition of events of the 14th to 16th centuries. Now, if you think about what we were doing at the start of the presentation, the destruction and the earth became without form, comma, and void, that's when it happened. J92, there's heaps and heaps and heaps of pictures of dates with a J or an I instead of the one before they added the 1,000 years. And I find this really interesting as well, because we all know that the King James Bible came out in 1611, or what we're taught is 1611. But if you remove the 1,000 years, you get 611, and turn it upside down, and there you have your 119 or your 911. That's how far it goes back, at least that far. There's a reason why, Harry, in America and the US, for argument's sake, that you write the day, then the month. So 11/9 would be how we would write it, be the 11th of September, whereas in America, Canada, you do it the other way. You go September and then the date. So these numbers can be read either way around. It's exactly the same thing. So once you remove the 1,000 years from the King James date, you get 611, or inverted, you get your 11/9/11.
Again, they do that interchangeably so that they can confuse you.
Yeah, of course. Well, again, it's deception, isn't it? That's all it is, Harry. It's deception. It's not lying, they're deceiving.
And one of the biggest deceiver was the guy Scalagerian, who made the calendar system.
Yeah.
That because prior to the priest class controlling the way the calendar system was calculated, It was the astrologers
Right.
and astronomers, the ones that kept track of the times and the dates. And then ever since these two time periods that we're looking at, the 1100s and the 1400s, that's when the priest class took over. The Jesuits walk in and they kind of take over as the people in charge of those calendar systems.
There you go.
And another point about Anatoly Fomenko, if you do go out there and start looking into him, a lot of his works are on PDF. You can have them at no cost. And he is important because he was an he was a watcher of the sky. You know, the sky clock was his baby, and he knew the cycles of that clock.
Well, that's how he's managed to redate everything by using the sky clock. And just to pick up on what you said, if you look at number 6, histories of ancient Rome, Greece and Egypt were crafted during the Renaissance by humanists and clergy, mostly on the basis of documents of their own making. So all these histories, ancient Rome, Greece, Egypt, is all created. It's all manufactured. The whole thing is all manufactured, all of it.
Yeah, just to benefit their storyline that they're trying to propagate.
Yeah.
And so Anatoly Fomenko is using all these cyclical events like Halley's Comet that comes around every 80 years or so.
Eclipses and all that, yeah.
Because those are constant, they don't ever change. No matter how much the dates change, those things are on time all the time, just like the train that shows up in front of the train depot every day.
Absolutely. So what we've got is we have the deluge, the biblical deluge, which is all in our opinion around the 15th century, and we're gonna on the next podcast, Harry, I want to talk about David Talbot discourses on an alien sky, because that's how it all connects to sun worship, Satanism, the whole boot and dials all comes together in a beautiful picture. It's so easy to put everything together once you understand what David Talbot's work is all about. And he's like Fomenko. Fomenko's dedicated like 40 years of his life to this. Dave Talbot's done the same, 30, 40 years, all dedicated. And then, you know, we're the lucky ones, because we come along and we kind of take that, and then we get to join it all together. And that's when we see the pictures emerging.
Yeah, a lot of people want to debunk the work of Fomenko because, you know, they think, oh, he's a product of
course he is.
Of the Soviet Union, so he's not to be trusted. That's why the narrative today is that the Russians are not to be trusted. It's just all a ploy, again, to polarize the people, and keep us apart from one another. And yet they realize, and they're fighting hard, because even though I'm in the United States and Nigel's in China, we're using the technology that they created to keep us oppressed. And we're able to unify and share ideas and kind of break through this code that they're trying to unleash on us.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, you're right about them trying to debunk Fomenko, but they can't. That's the thing. And it's like, you know, a lot of the stuff that you and I have been talking about over the last few weeks before we actually started putting them out as a podcast. You know, some of the ideas that we've come up with, they may sound a little bit crazy, but they can't be debunked. I mean, it doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean that, oh yeah, Nigel and Harry, you've got it. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is, this is what we're putting out. If you can logically and physically debunk it, then please go ahead. But so far, nobody's been able to debunk what we're actually putting together. Now, for the last part of this presentation, this is what is called a boot scraper. Now, I remember these growing up in the UK. I remember seeing these many, what we were told were Victorian houses. And it was right outside the front door. And when you walked home, you scraped your boots. You removed the mud from your boots on this boot scraper.
Yeah.
This is a picture from 1865. Now, again, you know, a lot of good people have done a lot of great work on the mud flood. John Levi, Martin Leaker, to name two, Philip from Russia, heaps of people. Karen's done some great work on it as well. And again, this is not connected to the deluge, the one that happened in the 15th century. This is another one that happened like a couple of hundred years later.
Yeah, this is more recent.
Much more recent.
And a lot of these pictures, you know, the question is, why is the sky in all these pictures always blurred out?
Because of the airships. They don't want us to see the airships.
Right. They already have technology to fly.
Yeah.
No big deal.
There's a video on my channel called Blimps on the Belfry, or Bats in the Belfry. It's absolutely brilliant. I mirrored it from Spacebusters, I think. And he's done some awesome work. He shows you that all the spires on churches, they were landing stations for airships. It's where people got on and off. All the churches and the cathedrals were all healing centres. That's why they have such big organs and these beautiful cymatic windows. They were healing centres. Jamie Lee has done a lot of work on that from a Plain Truth. And we have organs in our body. People would go to these healing centres. They doubled as a station for getting on and off these airships. Yeah, that's why you see all the skies are always blanked out.
And that's why there was no real need for the type of medicine that we have today. It's because people were naturally being healed in these cathedrals that were not religion based originally.
Yeah, but you see, that doesn't make money, does it? That doesn't make money.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to eliminate that, and that's why we're seeing the destruction of a lot of these buildings because it's to their benefit to get rid of them.
Absolutely. If you look at, who was it? It might have been John Levy, I think, who put up a video about the destruction of Cologne, the city of Cologne, how the whole of Cologne, which was bombed in 1942, was all inside the Starfall. The whole thing was inside the Starfall, and they didn't destroy anything from the outside of the Starfall. They destroyed everything in the middle, which was the city of Cologne. It's absolutely amazing. But you can see what they've done and why they've done it. It's all about control. I've got to give Martin Leaker credit. I stole this from this screenshot from his video, and you know, it's all there. You know, it's all there. Everything in this reality is fake. It's all one great big deception, right from the get-go.
Like I say, anything in the mainstream media, whether it's the news, the radio, the movies, the TV show.
Yeah.
Whatever. A lot of times, if it's something pertinent for you to know, it's usually going to be the opposite. That's true.
Without a doubt.
When it's something that they want to leak out and just not have a lot of people realize it, it's going to be in something either like a comedy or a cartoon. It's going to be called soft disclosure. Well,
they did that, in my opinion. That they did that in Life of Brian. You know, they were talking about such an emphasis on on the conch, on the big notes. Again, you know, they wrap it up in comedy and they make it nice and funny. But you know, the truth is still in there.
One of my favorite movies too. When I was a kid, I loved that. It was hilarious, and you would have never known that the code was being given to those in the know, in the nose. Those who knows.
Yeah, the nose who knows. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what was the code? Can you remember? What were they talking about?
Oh no, the code meaning about the nose. They were just talking.
Oh right, yeah, right.
And they were revealing that it's the people with the noses that are in control.
Yeah. Oh well, Absolutely, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this one. We're going to do another one in a few days on the David Talbot stuff. Discourses on an Alien Sky, which is a huge PPT. I mean, this one's got like 70 slides in it, but the other one's got 170 slides. So it's going to be a big show. Okay, stick around, Harry. I'll talk to you in a sec. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.
Take care.